Well, hello there, motherfuckers, and we're going to be looking at The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the Switch. So, I recently live streamed this game, picked it up the day it came out, and, it was a really exciting time when I saw earlier this year, when Link's Awakening was announced for the Switch, that they would be remaking the classic Game Boy game. And, this, to me, is my favorite Legend of Zelda game. Now, certain times, I feel strongly about other games in the series, but for the most part, this does predominantly stay my favorite most of the time. It's just weird, it's wacky, it takes place in a dream world, it's very surreal. The fact that you have enemies featured from the Super Mario Bros. Series is something entirely, and there's cameos from other characters in other series throughout the adventure, and it all together feels like a very unique experience that has never really been replicated in any other Legend of Zelda game. So we start off with Link getting shipwrecked in this amazing anime style intro, and a young girl by the name of Marin finds Link washed up on the shore, and he finds himself on a mysterious Koholint island, and it is now up to Link to find out just what the hell is going on here. There's a mysterious owl who's giving Link tips about how to go about the island and how to navigate it. And Link is in the usual form where he has to navigate through dungeons, explore a massive overworld, and of course it's, not as massive as it usually is on the consoles, because this is originally a Game Boy title, so we're dealing with the limitations of the Game Boy. Now, of course, there have been a lot of improvements and additions added to this remake, but for the most part, it is still pretty loyal to its Game Boy counterpart from which it originated from. And I love what they've done with this remake. First and foremost, these graphics. Now, these graphics have been controversial since the Nintendo Direct in which this game was first introduced. People didn't like these cutesy, almost claymation style graphics. And I have to say, this works incredibly well for this game. I think that I would like to see this as a style for other games. And I wouldn't mind seeing a totally new Zelda adventure in this style. Now, many people have different opinions about this. They say it works just for this game. It doesn't work at all. I am in the camp of saying that I really like this art style. Being someone who really likes claymation and likes unique looks. Because what I like is, they could have went with the abstract. They could have went with something totally out there. And this is out there with it still being grounded. It looks good to me, and it makes you want to play. It makes you want to look at the game, and I could not wait to get to certain parts in this game and see how it was going to look. Not only how it was going to look, but also that remade soundtrack. I love what they did also with the soundtrack. Take a listen here to what they did with Animal Village, for example. I think that this is how you redo a soundtrack and still do it justice, but still give it that modernized feel. I also really love the remixed track of the Phase Shrine dungeon music. This comes hot off the heels of you learning that Koholint Island is all but an illusion. And then you enter into the dungeon and you hear this solemn, emotional, dark, depressing piece. And I love how they played off of the story in this piece and we also got an amazing remastered track to boot. Now let's talk a little bit about the controls of this game. Now, when we were on the Game Boy, we only had 2 action buttons to work with. And these 2 buttons were A and B, of course, and they were used for assigning different weapons. So you could have an item such as the Roc's Feather equipped to A and the sword equipped to B. But sometimes you had to use 2 weapons at once. For example, the Pegasus boots and the Roc's Feather, so you could do a running jump. This was pretty inconvenient at times because it really had an overemphasis on going into the menu screen constantly. You know, it seemed like every couple of minutes you had to do this. You know, you were in a dungeon, you were in a certain room, and a certain puzzle required you to use certain items in order for you to solve it. And you had to keep on switching back and forth between the game and the menu. And some people found this to be a big flaw in the game. I understood it as being a limitation of the Game Boy, it only having 2 buttons to work with. But many people said that, you know, it didn't work. Now, most people seem to understand, but there were others who just couldn't get around it and, you know, saw it as something to be game breaking. Now, I kind of heard this more in more modern reviews of the game, and you know, I could see it being justified somewhat, but now there's no excuse, because now you always have your shield equipped, you always have the sword equipped, and now you can still have 2 slots to use other items. Now, you still have to switch every now and again, but this is pretty standard for most Zelda games. And, you know, now it's been streamlined. The process has been streamlined, and, you know, I'm very thankful that they took the time to come up with a control scheme and an inventory style that really works for this game and doesn't feel overbearing and doesn't have you switching out of items so many times. And the reason why you are is because there is definitely an even bigger emphasis on items this time, and you will be using these items a lot. The only time that you don't really use an item that much is the magic rod, because that is the item you get in the last dungeon, so of course you don't get as many opportunities to use that item. But everything else, like the Pegasus boots, the Roc's Feather, the bombs, you use that stuff constantly. And it's great because you never feel like anything is useless and is only a one-trick pony. They take full advantage of the inventory, and I really like that. It makes Link, and it makes your inventory feel very versatile. And I like that. It keeps the challenges going. It makes you think about your inventory. So that is another reason why this is a premier entry in the Zelda series. Now, as you progress through your adventure, you will find that things are not as they seem. You will find out that this world is not even real. It is actually a dream, and it is due to the windfish being asleep. And Link must navigate through 8 dungeons, and he has to defeat all 8 nightmares in order to get the 8 magical instruments that will allow him to wake up the windfish. And it's really fun getting there. You're going to be facing off against some bosses that a lot of their attack patterns have been redesigned, and that's very thankful. One in particular being a Hothead, which was a real cinch where you could just pretty much steamroll him by firing your magic rod at him. Now, you know, you're not going to be that lucky. The battle is not a cakewalk like it used to be, but there are many different little adjustments and tweaks made during the battles for these bosses. But most of the changes in the game are kept to a minimum. Now let's talk about one of the biggest changes that you will see, and that is the addition of Dampy, which is the grave digger, grave keeper, call him what you will, from Ocarina of Time. And he allows you to make your own dungeons. And this feature was interesting. It didn't really appeal to me all that much. You know, you have to like connect things, and you know, the interface is, I mean, I guess it's pretty good for like what it sets out to be. I wasn't really enthralled, to be honest, with this. You know, the prospect of creating my own dungeons, it sounds interesting, but it's like Super Mario Maker. I think I'd much rather play the levels. I'm not really so much for wanting to create them. But what they do give you here is very interesting, and people have said that it could be considered to be a template for a Legend of Zelda Maker, you know, much akin to a Super Mario Maker. And it really leaves you wondering what a full-fledged dungeon maker would really be like. It shows a lot of potential. It is fun. There are rewards for, you know, making these dungeons and going through them and collecting different parts that enable you to make different dungeons. Now, all these rooms that, you know, it's cool, you can interlock, you can mix and match different rooms, but they're all pre-existing rooms in the dungeons that are already in the game. So that could be a little bit disappointing to some, but the fact that they even took the time to give you this tool as an added bonus to an already amazing game, it's just great. You know, it adds on to the price point. And I saw a lot of people questioning that. Oh, you know, this is a Game Boy title. How do they get off charging $60 for it? I think what we're paying for is the fact that this game was remade with the love and care that it was. Does a game have to be 60 plus hours? You know, does it have to be the length of a JRPG? I don't think so. I think the fact that you're getting great graphics, granted that you like the style of graphics, and a great remade soundtrack, I think that you're definitely getting your money's worth, especially if you're a big Legend of Zelda fan such as myself. I greatly recommend this title. I think that you'll enjoy yourself, and especially if you've never played this game before, I think what would be great is, I don't know what order you'd want to do this in, but I would say if you were to play the original first for the Game Boy and then play this, this is definitely going to be a title, I will say that. For nostalgia, for people who have played the game and now, like me, coming back and playing this game again with, you know, these great remastered visuals and the soundtrack and everything, and the added bonuses and these, you know, reworked controls that makes the game better, you know, I think that those people are going to get the most out of the experience. But if you go back and you see how far this game came, if you, like I said, if you play the original for the first time, or after you play through the remake and then you go back to the Game Boy original, whichever order you do it in, I think you're going to get a great appreciation for what exactly they did with this remake. Plus, you could even spend hours getting lost in the reworked trendy game, Claw game, or the fishing mini game, or just hunting down seashells so you could obtain a new sword, and a variety of other new prizes, as there's even more seashells than there were in the original game. So guys, I hope you all enjoyed this review. Definite recommendation from me. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all notifications when I post all my new videos. And guys, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.